Well, hey there team, welcome back to the channel and welcome to my overview of Once Human. For those not across it, I do overviews on this channel, which is where I have a look at the first 2 hours of a game because it's a Steam refund window. Essentially, Steam thinks you can make up your mind about that, and as a rule, I tend to agree, so I make short punchy videos around 10 minutes, saves you the trouble, and it puts things on your radar. Now, there can be exceptions to the rule, one of which would be free-to-play games. That's what this is. You can download it now, it's fully released. So I'm still sticking to my format because that's what I do, but I'm also aware that the money proposition is a little bit different. Now, straight out of the gate, everything that this game is doing, it's doing well. This already sounds loaded, right? Like if it was an immediate recommendation, I would have told you already. I kind of have this big looming issue with this game in the back of my mind, and it is starting to win me over. And being that there's not a lot else going on this week, I'm seriously considering putting more time into this to review it, to give it a bit more of a go. But it is worth noting that what it's doing, like its combat, its movement, I don't know much about netcode specifically, but I do know plenty about janky, shitty multiplayer launches. Last week I would have told you that the launch on the first Descendant was probably one of the best online launches day one that we'd seen in ages. This so far seems to be quite brilliant as well, and I think that's in no small part to the fact that the devs seem to have chosen to limit how many characters that you can make. This is a game that's built in shards or realms, whatever you'd like to call it, and this is all speculative, and I've already seen them posting that they're going to essentially unlock it, but I feel like they might have throttled your flexibility in character creation tremendously so as to smooth out the launch and the distribution of players. But again, this is just speculation. I haven't seen something like this before, and when I booted this up, it had mostly negative reviews. It was getting not bombed, because bombing is unreasonable or outside of the game or political or whatever, right? Bombing is disingenuous. People expect that they can make multiple characters over multiple realms and shards, and then when their mates join, they can jump across. So when this launched, when I booted this up this morning, it was one character per one shard, and that's it. You can't move it, you can't do anything like that. That's at least the telegraphing. Like I said, the reviews already this morning, between me booting it up and looking at it now, are coming back up to mixed, and the devs have already responded saying, shit, sorry, we're gonna fix that. So that's probably worth noting. Also, I did just come across right towards the end of my time there, I went up to like, I don't know, it's like a teleportation pylon thing. And one of the options there was to move yourself to a different instance. So either they've implemented it straight away, or people have jumped the gun and assumed that you couldn't move, but there is an in-game system for it. So I'm not sure what happened there. I wonder if a lot of people just assumed they could make 10,000 different characters on different servers because that's usually the norm. But the devs actually implemented like an in-game mechanic to do it. It's a tricky thing to say, right? Like if you're going to try and upend the way things are done as a developer, you've got to expect some backlash from players that expect things to be a certain way because of precedent of decades of online gaming. Anyway, it's taken up a little bit of a chunk of my time here, but it was probably worth mentioning. A lot of the reviews are bashing it because it's essentially unconventional, to be generous, in the way that it allows you to create and move characters around. But you watch. Probably by the end of the day, they'll have patched that. But yeah, what it's doing is great. All the movement, everything is fantastic and fluid. I've had no connection issues, no hitching. There are people bloody everywhere. You're essentially building your own little Rust-like base inside of a giant instance. It's hard to really pass judgment on it just yet, for multiple reasons. One, it is leaning into being free to play as a design philosophy, ergo it's very grindy. So far I have not had any lethality or challenge pushback on me, and the crafting and all that. Like, to be perfectly honest, I'm becoming exhausted by these sort of games. And what sort of game is that, Scarlet? Well, like I said, sort of survival build, crafting, base building things. Like, it seems to be doing everything right. That's the truth of it. Is I might just be hitting my inflection point where I'm getting burnt out by these games that, in the name of X hours value, bloat their content. And I really do find myself sitting here going, I would rather pay full AAA price for a game that just cleans up that nonsense and gives me more value per hour. If I sit down to play a game for an hour or two, I would like that hour or two to feel like I actually achieved something, as opposed to running around and picking up 10,000 bits of scrap, which is kind of what you do here, and then you melt them down as well. First Descendant got away with it a little bit more with me because I find the loop at the core to be more engaging, more, combat based and interplay, whereas this is leaning more into the slower open world vibe, more in the direction of like an MMO. And so things like the grind become kind of exacerbated when the moment to moment gameplay is not gunplay. But the really big looming issue that I have with this, and again, like I said, there is a good chance I put more time into this to really cut my teeth on it and see what's going on, because I'm not having an unpleasant time. Like I said, it feels like it's cracking my surface. And I could understand if you're a bit befuddled because I've said nothing but good things about it. It's doing everything smoothly, but it feels like, from a design perspective, that it is derivative as a design philosophy, and I can't really square that. A great way to explain this is through the themes and the art. So much of the stuff here is just cherry-picked from clearly other games that the devs have drawn heavy inspiration from. Rip-off or homage, I mean, look, everyone's going to have their line, but immediately straight out of the gate, it's channeling a lot of Death Stranding, but doesn't really add a lot. Like Death Stranding, but makes me want to reinstall Death Stranding. A lot of the bad guy institution that you sort of wake up in has got not just a brutalist art style, but even like just things like the blast doors and the cells and the sort of divided containment areas by black gaps. Like everything about that we've seen before in Control. It's very clear that they're lifting a lot of stuff straight out of Control, but it just makes me want to reinstall Control. You got some pretty egregious stuff, like when you finish the tutorial and it launches you into the open world, God, I'll have to find the B-roll, but you just appear out of the sky, out of a stock door just placed there. It doesn't need to really make a lot of sense. It's all very contrived so as to drop you from the sky onto the world instance, to use a parachute glider thing straight out of Fortnite and all the battle royales. Now, do you need that glider? Have I used that glider? Is there any other situation out from that moment that calls upon that? No, not really. It feels like hey, we like this part of Fortnite and we're gonna jam it in somehow. And then when you start Swiss cheesing all these issues and lining them up, like I said, it goes from a bit of inspiration or coincidence to conceptual fundamental philosophy of they're probably storyboarding and whiteboarding this in their creative meetings. Hey, what are a bunch of things we want to rip straight out of other games and put into this game? It's too consistent in its inspirations. Again, moving around the gunplay, like it is smooth, it's clean, there is no lethality or anything, like it feels very low impact. Part of why I wanted to give this game a go is because it reminds me of The Division. I love The Division. And again, this just makes me want to reinstall The Division instead. And now they've given me a motorbike to travel around, and it's got a little bit of a weightiness to it, at least when it's moving slower. And they've got a whole bunch of radio stations you can choose from with pretty interesting, cool music, dare I say, and very clearly heavily inspired from Days Gone with the bike. Makes me want to reinstall Days Gone. So, like, it's difficult to reconcile this, and it might just be me personally, but it feels like a huge slapdash amalgamation of things that the devs found inspiring and interesting, and yet at its core, the game isn't really doing anything particularly innovative or new. The dialogue is terrible, and the story has already lost me immediately. Like you're like a rebel group called the Mayflies because you were essentially born in a vat from the big bad company, right? And they admit in the cutscenes that the big bads did the right thing by making you because humanity's getting extinct and they need to come up with a solution, and their solution is to sort of genetically manipulate and make superhumans with this stardust shit. And so you just seem like a disgruntled bloody white collar teenager essentially that's got the shits and decided, well, no, I'm just gonna blaze my own path. And so they're waging war on this corporation, killing them, fighting them, skirmishing them. For what? For creating them as a solution to try and save humanity? It's not very clear. but the whole world seems to think the Mayflies are the good guys, and it's asking me to jump through hoops immediately that just don't make sense. And I don't think it's a language barrier or anything like that. I think it is just poor writing. However, as I said, it's doing what it does well, and it's drawing all these member-berry associations, and it's not unpleasant to play. I'm curious if I put more time into it and I get past the initial bullshit, bloated, free-to-play grind crap, if the game actually starts to ramp up and push back and become fun because of challenge and adversity. But having said all of that, I recognize that this may well just be a new wave of game design. Kind of saw it in the first Ascendant, and we saw it here. Comfort food, bloated, menial task games. Maybe they're designed to help people that don't have a lot going on in their life fill in the gaps. I don't really understand. So yes, it's a bit speculative, but generally speaking, I put a pretty high premium on my time, and while I love playing games and games are an important thing to me, I fucking hate when games waste my time. So yeah, look, I've got some thoughts running around in my head. It's not bad, not even by any metric or measure. But again, it feels, as a principle, as a cornerstone of its design, it feels derivative every way, with a million mechanics thrown against the wall to see what will stick, taken from all the games that they enjoyed. And I suppose the cynic in me just sees that kind of design philosophy. Similar to, just to round out, and I'm not allowed to say bad things about Palworld, and I'm glad it's successful, but if you look at Palworld and their previous game, Craftopia, where they had a false start, but they did the exact same thing. They threw in a billion different mechanics and inspirations. They just slapped it all together with no cohesion. Craftopia didn't really land, though it did have its cult following, and Palworld did. Now that's all good and well. I'm happy for them. I wish nothing but success on game devs, but I can't say I'm a big fan of this throw 100 ideas into the soup pot and hope that one of them gets you viral success. Dare I say, I kind of enjoy the artistic purity of a developer with a vision and sticking to their guns and launching their game as is, for better or for worse. Anyway, check it out yourself. That's the most important thing. What would I know? I don't know anything. I just play video games. Let me know if you want to see me review this, because again, I am considering it because I'm curious, if nothing else, to see what other 100 mechanics and rip-off inspirations they throw into the soup pot for the next dozen hours. Who knows? Anyway, team, I might just leave it there for the time being. I will catch you guys on the next one.